The Calling Cincinnati main event. Who'd I play? How'd I do? Let's find out. Hi friends, welcome to Nearly Same Games. I'm Neil, and this is the Calling Cincinnati report. Now this weekend, at the main event Calling Cincinnati was Tales of Aria sealed. This was a well-attended event, and I believe that there was over 600 people in attendance. Now going into this competition, I was just really looking for, I didn't really have a hero that I wanted to play necessarily. I really just didn't want to play Oldhim Fatigue. It's not a very fun deck for me, I don't think, and so a Lexi deck or a Briar deck, or just a big smashy Oldhim deck if that's what my pool lent itself to. But anything but Oldhim Fatigue I was really good with. So let's take a look at my card pool and what I built. All right, so here's my sealed pool. And the first thing I noticed after going through the registration process, or having the person across from me go through the registration process, is that I have exactly the same cards, number of cards for each of the classes. This does not make choosing easier. Sometimes you'll get pools that have 19 or 20 cards in one class, and it's generally, that's where you go. I also don't have a big variation in my elemental pools. I started to look at Lexi. I've got a few decent red arrows that I'm looking at, but I don't have a lot of yellow arrows. My pump spells are leave a little bit something to be desired. I've got a lot of blues here. It's not, it's maybe okay. I looked at Briar, because of course I want to look Briar. Look at these 4 Bramble Sparks. I've only got 2 Arcanic Shockwaves, and then only one Singeing Steelblade. I like that it's red, but it was okay, but again, nothing great. I don't have a huge number. I got 1 Ball Lightning. Maybe if I had more of those, I'd be more excited about that. But I opened a Winter's Wail, and I have 18 blues that I can use for Oldhim. And so that's what I did. Like, this deck built itself, and I really needed to go that direction. So that's the direction I went. I also got the buckler, and fortunately, I've got equipment that I can use, which is not always the case. Would have rather had a deep blue in here, but this is all very good anyway. So let's take a look at the deck I built. All right, here's my Oldhim Fatigue deck. All right, we'll start with Oldhim himself. Remember, his ability is once per turn defensive reaction, pay 3. If an earth card is pitched this way, prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to Oldhim this turn. If an ice card is pitched this way, the attacking hero puts a card from their hand on top of their deck. It is very important to keep this in mind at all times. We're going to be using this as much as possible, and this will allow us to prevent some damage from the dominated attacks, and this will also allow us to prevent some of the arcane damage. So if Briar comes in with an attack that has go again, I can pitch earth cards to prevent the next 2 damage and block out the attack. So I'll have 2 damage prevention on the stack, and when they come in with the thorn, the 2 arcane damage that comes through will be blocked automatically, because that would be the next 2 damage, and then I can block the physical damage as well. And that's how we make sure that we're blocking arcane damage. This also works very well with a dominated attack, because I can put a 3 block down and still have an extra 2 block. I can block 5 on a dominated attack, which is very good against Lexi. or another Oldhim that is doing bad things to us. Next up, let's take a look at our equipment. First off is the best is Winter's Whale. This is, I believe, the card that makes it all possible. First off is a 4 attack. This is a very disadvantageous number for our opponent because even if they have a block 3 in hand, they're going to have to take 2 cards or they're going to have to take some splash damage. The effect on here is also very good if we can get an ice card pitched because they can potentially have a frostbite token. So we're always threatening 1 damage and potentially a frostbite token. It's very good for the long game. We also managed to get a Rotten Old Buckler. 1 defense when I can remember to use it. Pretty good just to have. And then we have our equipment, Runaways. If we can remember, the only place I really like this is against Briar, because Briar likes to go wide, likes to have arcane damage. So after we've taken the arcane damage, we can pop this and prevent the next 1 damage. It's not always great. We're usually blocking out anyway. There's a lot of 2 and 3 attacks from Briar, so not that great. We're probably blocking it anyway, but if we can remember to use it in certain situations, it's okay. Cracker Jacks. This is nice. If I like to save this for our Thump, if I can, and this will give an easy way to give Thump +1 and give it Dominate. So generally I want to save it for that. If it's late game, I might throw it anyway. Remember, this is only an attack action card, so it doesn't work with our hammer. And Ragamuffin's Hat is awful. I use this several times. You can only have 1 card in hand when you use it. You draw a card and decide if you want to put a card on top or bottom of your deck. And I don't think this ever saved me anything. It was usually draw a card and put it back on top and just be sad. Okay. Now, this deck is running 36 cards. We want to run more because we're going to look at fatigue, but we also have 18 blues in this deck, which was why I had to go with it anyway. So we have half of our deck is blue. We've got some extra. I could have had more cards put in there, but they would all have been yellows, and I really just want to have more consistency, trying to get a blue every turn. If we can, we want to swing the Winter's Whale every turn, unless we have something great to throw at them. But here's what we have. First off, let's go over our red attacks, our Guardian attacks. Now, the important thing here is that all of these block for 3, and that goes with our Guardian yellows as well. Sometimes we'll use the yellows for pitch, but most of the time we're looking for the block. But the reds we might consider if we have a turn that we can throw these at our opponent, we will, but not afraid to use any of these to block with, including the Glacial Footsteps. This is a little bit of a trap. If you can't give this Dominate, then your opponent can throw 3 cards down and take 1 point of damage. And you've spent 3 cards to do that, and it's not that exciting in that respect. I'm not saying it's not good sometimes, but don't be taking a bunch of damage because you're really excited to throw this. If it works out that you're not blocking with this turn, I don't mind arsenaling this. Maybe we can find a turn that we can use it. Maybe we don't, and I'm not upset by using it to block. We have a bunch of blues for Guardian. Again, all of these block for 3. Not afraid to use these to block, but having the 3 pitch is very good in a lot of different situations. We will use these as we can. Huge pool of blue, which is great. I will take it. Biting Gale. I hate this card. I don't think I ever use this as a defense reaction. It only blocks for 2, which is awful. Generally, I want to use this as another blue card that I can put in my deck that I can pitch with. So that's why that's here. Then we go over to our elemental. We have a couple of elemental, just generic elemental cards here. Entwine Earth is a decent enough attack for 2. It only blocks for 2. Elementals mostly only block for 2. So again, this is a good arsenal target. It only costs 2, so there are situations where that's good. Rejuvenate, the gain 1 life isn't really worth anything. I prefer the gain 3 life, the red. But something that we can block with, or another blue pitch that we can use. Put all the blue pitches that we could use in here. Let's take a look at some of our ice. Winter's Bite is okay. Decent if we put it in our arsenal. It's nice to pull cards from Briar's hand. They generally want to have a lot of cards. Also, you can disrupt Lexi, because Lexi wants to pump up her arrows. And if you pull a card from her hand, she might not be able to do that. Most of these are Polar Blast. I did use this once to some pretty good effect. Weave Ice can give a pump if we can use it. If not, these are all blue, or are all potential ice pitch. Remember, you can't just pitch for no reason. You have to be paying for something, but you can underpitch and then overpitch. So we can pitch a red ice card in preparation to play the Winter's Wail, and then pitch a blue card and have one floating to throw the Winter's Wail. We cannot pitch a blue, have 3 available, and then pay an ice to give the Winter's Wail the attack. You have to make sure you watch your order on that. You can also pitch a yellow ice card and pitch a yellow earth card and double activate Oldhim's ability, which is something that's very important. For our blues, I generally like to hold on to, if possible, for the Winter's Wail. These are not strong enough in most cases to actually throw at our opponent. There are some rare encounters where we might want to do that. Looking at our Earth utility cards, Weave Earth, Earthlore Surge, both good pumps if we can use them. I really like the +4 in the Earthlore Surge. These are also, again, great pitch values for Oldhim's ability. Pitch this, pitch something else to get that 2 damage prevention. Summerwood Shelter, this only works on Earth or Elemental cards, so this works with all of our Guardian cards. The +4 is great. We can use this on a dominated attack because this is targeting the card, not targeting the attack. So it does not count as a card from hand. It gets a little bit wonky if we don't have Earth cards in our hand, if we just have a bunch of Ice cards, but you can usually arsenal this and there will be some target for it that we will want eventually. So we have a couple of Earth attacks. Autumn's Touch blocks for 3. Happy to use it as a block, but a 7 attack is better than our Winter's Wail in most cases. So if I have a blue pitch available and I can hold this in hand, maybe I'll do that. But again, we're playing the long game, so Winter's Wail is the target every turn, and if I use this to block, I'm happy to do that. Burgeoning, I have used this before by arsenaling it. Generally, I want to arsenal it. 6 attack is okay, 7 attack is much better because we're over that 2 card threshold, and you can block a 6 attack with 2 cards. With the 7 attack, it becomes much harder to block, and you're probably getting some splash damage there. And here's our Earth All-Stars. It's always great to see these. Again, we're not playing these cards. These are going into Oldhim's ability. And it's very important to keep in mind, like these block twos, if you lay them down versus using Oldhim's ability, it's the same thing, except Oldhim's ability is better because we're cycling through these cards and we can use these cards again. So these are all very good. I generally don't want to use these as attacks by themselves, but instead use these as pitch and keep on recycling it in our deck. And when you see these again late game, it's amazing. It's great. So that's my deck, and it's fantastic. I don't think I could have asked for a better pool, better Oldhim pool. I don't like the Oldhim fatigue game. It makes it difficult to play. You have to try to play very quickly in order to not go to time. But let's talk about my matches and how this deck played. All right, let's see how my Oldhim fatigue deck worked. So my first match was against a Lexi player. Didn't seem like necessarily the most experienced player, and was throwing arrows at me, but not necessarily very large attacks. I was very diligent about blocking and swinging my hammer each turn. I was able to get in some big attacks. I didn't have, these arrows were coming in dominated, not a lot of go again. So generally was pulling one card from my hand, but a lot of these arrow attacks weren't very big. And so I was able to block a lot of it, and sometimes they weren't dominated, sometimes you give it the +1, sometimes you'd have another lightning attack. In the end, it wasn't very threatening. I think by the time I won, I was still at 15 life. He was at 1 with my final killing blow. He went to fatigue. I had plenty of cards still left in my deck. And we looked over his deck afterwards, and he was only running a few red arrows. I believe he changed his deck after that match to see what he had as a better pool. I think he went with an Oldhim deck after that. My second round was an Oldhim mirror. This person was running 45 cards in their deck as compared to my 36. He didn't have Winter's Wail though, and I stuck to my plan. I believe he had a big dominated attack early on. I threw my armor and a card in front of it, but I was still able to come back with some big hits, and then the constant Winter's Wail attacks wore him down. Again, focused very much on using Oldhim's ability when I could, mostly just preventing 2 damage. So I'm recycling cards, and he's just using cards to block with. In the end, I fatigued him, and still had a few cards left in my deck, and I was able to keep swinging Winter's Wail for the kill. The third matchup was another Oldhim deck, and this one was, again, he didn't have the Winter's Wail. This was a lot of back and forth. We were really working on trying to play quickly. We didn't want to end up going to fatigue or going to time and ending with a draw. In the end, I was able to throw some bigger attacks at him that he wasn't able to block enough of. And again, the Winter's Wail is a very oppressive weapon, especially when you have as many blues as I did. So I beat him. I was at 6, he was at 2 when I finally killed him. So the next match was my first Briar Match, and I made a mistake here that I noticed right away. First off, when I sat down, I put out my Oldhim, I put out my weapons, I put out my armor, and set aside my deck. And the first thing he did when he sat down was start sideboarding. And I realized I had made a mistake here. The mistake I had made is laying everything out in front of me. Now, when you select your hero and your weapon, you are allowed to put it in front of you. And we talked with this with another one of my opponents. If you have multiple weapons, they need to be on the field, but you don't need to reveal them. You can put all of your equipment in a stack. I put them actually under my hero. They are all on the board. I will not reach over and grab a different piece of equipment or weapon from there, but they are present, and I have declared what I'm going to play before I play, but I have not revealed any information to my opponent. And that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that I did in the future. And in every other match during the weekend, I was sure to reveal my opponent, reveal my my hero, but not any equipment, not any weapon. And remember, if you flip over the Winter's Whale, it's the only one that has a flesh and blood back instead of a token back. So you really want to just stack them under your hero so that you can make sure you're not revealing any information. So that was the first mistake. The second mistake was I wasn't really paying attention to what he was doing on his first attack. He won the roll, and I was blocking out his first attack, and I didn't notice that he had extra pitch left over to swing the Rosetta Thorn at the end. So first turn I take 4 damage because I really just wasn't paying attention to that. I pitched a card to make him put a card on top of his deck. I thought that was a good idea. It was not. I should have, and so that kind of woke me up that this was a different level of player than my previous 3 matches. So I started playing very cautiously and was watching every attack. And again, I'm trying to play quickly because I'm playing a fatigue game and I don't want to go to time. And he's playing very slow and very methodically, and he's really looking at his lines. I can't really fault him for that, but he was very careful in every attack that he did. So then I was very aware of what he was doing. I was watching for abilities that had go again. I was making sure that I was using the earth pitch aggressively to block 2 damage. Try to block a lot of the arcane damage that was coming through. I knew when he was going to swing the sword. I knew what kind of blocks I would have when he did that. There were times that I would block out with my whole hand and just pass the next turn, and I think that was the right call. I really wanted to make sure that I was very careful in everything that I did. In the end, I had a big hand that I was able to keep, and I played the card from Arsenal that makes him either pay 2 or the next attack I get has Dominate. And since I played it from Arsenal, I got to draw a card. And with that draw, he did pay it, which I think was probably the correct move. It absolutely was the correct move. But that allowed me to have my pump spell and a big attack. I swung in for 12. He was at a low life total. He was at 5 life. He didn't have enough to block it out, and I won that match. And I was very proud of that win. That was a very tough win for me. Good opponent. The next match, I was playing against another Briar. Again, we were trying to play quickly. We were very aware of the clock, but in the end, we went to time. At that point, he was still at 10 life. I was at 2 life. He had a lot of good attacks that I didn't have the right blocks for. I had a few awkward hands, and he was an excellent player. I can't fault him for that. But in the end, he swung in. I had a full grip of cards. I think he swung in for 6. I probably could have easily blocked. You can't concede a match, but I just failed to block the last hit. And I feel like he won that match, and if we had continued for many more turns, he probably would have won that match. So, good for him. That happened. And my next match was another Oldham mirror. Again, he did not have the Winter's Whale, but he had a lot of cards in his deck. He had definitely more than I did. We did card counts, deck counts every now and then that he requested. That's public information, so that's perfectly acceptable for him to count. And each time he had more cards than me, but it was getting more and more even each time he asked. In the end, we went to time. We were both at 1 life. We were both pretty much fatigued. We went to a draw. In hindsight, I probably could have given him the win, but at that point I was pretty tired. 6 matches in a row is a lot, and now I was 4-2, and honestly, I was pretty tired of playing. My commoner event was coming up, and I decided to drop. This was still a potentially winning record, I could have potentially finished in the top 67, but my issue with that is that when you have a almost winning record, I had 2 more matches that I would have to win. Maybe I could have won them. I don't know. I didn't play them. But in that state, I'm kind of waiting to lose. And when you're in these big tournaments, it's kind of an awful state to be in, because I could play for another hour and still lose, and miss a bunch of things, miss a bunch of other things. If I had stayed in there and for some reason I had won my next 2 matches, then I would have to go on to the draft portion, and I really just wouldn't be able to do what I wanted to do for the rest of the day. So I dropped and went about my day and had a wonderful rest of the day. I don't regret that. I talked to some people afterwards, and they pretty much agreed with the sentiment that it's a lot. It's a lot. It's kind of an endurance race. 8 rounds to go through is a whole lot of rounds. I'm very happy with my winnings. I think going 4-2 was an excellent record, and I'm happy to have done that. But I'm also happy I dropped and got to play other things. I don't think I would have been in the top 8. I don't think I would have been in the top 32. But I will tell you that 3 of my opponents ended up going 6-2. And one of those people I beat. So I'm very happy with that, and I believe one of those actually made it to day 2. So I consider that a big win for me. So yeah, that was my experience with the Calling main event. And were you there? How did you do? Let me know in the comments below. Till then, that has been the Calling Cincinnati report.